Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Uninvited, brought to us by Kemco and Icom Simulations. Uninvited is a horror-themed, classic-style point-and-click adventure game. The game was originally developed for Macintosh computer systems by Icom Simulations. Their other games, Deja and Shadowgate, were also later ported over to the NES by Kemco. While the game is mostly the same from its original computer version, there were some changes done to the NES version. The biggest change was adding a soundtrack to the game, which is one of the most memorable things about the game, at least for me. Being a point-and-click style game and a lot of puzzle elements, if you've never played the game before, I of course highly recommend trying it out for yourself first before watching the video. And also, being a point-and-click adventure style game, there's a lot of different ways you can go about actually playing the game. There's a lot of stuff you can click on and explore through the different areas of the game, as well as there's tons of items to collect, and only a handful of items are ones that you actually need to complete the game. During this run of the game, I'm going to be completing the game, getting the items that are essential in order to actually complete it, and showing the quickest, most effective method to get through the game. So here we go with Uninvited for the NES. After the logo screen, we then go to our main title screen, and when you push start, you'll have the option to choose one of 3 different files, because you can save during the course of the game, and then we'll jump actually right into the main story of the game. As the game begins, you find yourself in a car wreck. Your only thing that you really remember is you're trying to save your sister, which is a little bit different from the original version of the game where you're actually trying to find your younger brother. In this case, in the NES version, you're actually finding your older sister. When you gain control of it, I recommend of course first checking out all the different commands that you have, but our first main goal is going to be opening up the car door and then moving out of the car itself. Once you do so, the car will actually explode. I'm not sure if you're actually on any kind of timer with it. I think you're actually allowed to kind of just leisurely look through the settings, and then as soon as you exit the car, no matter what time it is, it then explodes. On the next screen, you're going to be looking at an old, creepy mansion. We start off by opening up the mailbox, and inside will contain an envelope. You want to take the envelope and open it up to reveal a letter as well as a pendant. And of course, we want to have both of those items in our inventory. The pendant will shine and actually open up the main door to the mansion once it's in your inventory. You can also read the letter for a little bit more story. After reading the letter, you then want to head inside the mansion itself. Once we've read the letter and we've opened up the door to the mansion, we're going to now head inside. Once inside the mansion, we're going to open up the doors here. Usually I like to open up most of the doors in the room before going through the door that we're actually traveling through. This will speed things up a little bit later on when we come back to different areas. And yes, you do have to click open and then whichever door you want to, and you don't have to actually click on the door itself. You can also use the little dots that are located on the mini-map in the lower left corner, which is very, very helpful. You want to first start by going into the door on the right and opening up the book here. Once you've opened up the book, you want to examine it to read it, in which case you'll actually get our first spells of the game. Yes, the game actually contains spells. The two most important of the spells we got are the Thunder spell as well as the Telemaze spell. Those are the only two of the ones listed that we're actually going to be using in this run of the game. Once back out into the main room, we're now heading into the upper door. This time we're going to end up in a big hallway. Instead of trying to open up really any of the doors itself, instead just head up the staircase. Once up to the top floor, open up a few of the doors. We're going to be opening up all the doors except for the one in the far upper right corner. Once you have all the doors open up, you want to move into the upper left door. This will take you into the bedroom. Now this room will be much more important later on, and you can actually open up the door in the back, and this will open it up for later on, but also we want to make sure that we open up this table on the side here and take this scroll. Once you have the scroll in your possession, be sure to actually open up the scroll and read it to get another one of the spells in the game. This spell is important because we'll be using it in just a little bit. While I end up going into the bathroom itself, you can just take a nice look at it because this is a very important room later in the game, but we didn't actually have to enter it now, I just accidentally did so. Once we've gotten the scroll and gotten the spell, go back out into this hallway and then go into the lower right door. You'll find a spiral staircase, and the only thing of importance that we're going to take here is the axe located on the left side. Be careful with the axe, you don't want to accidentally use the axe on yourself or else it's an instant death. The same goes if you use the knife on yourself in the game as well on yourself. Now head into this room and you want to take the upper left second shelf item, which is called No Ghost. We're going to be using that in just a second. When you go back out into the hallway, go back down to the main floor below. Try to open up one of the doors and all of a sudden a ghost will appear. Now I'm going to deviate for just a second and show you what happens when you don't use the No Ghost. When you try to open up a door with the ghost standing there without using the No Ghost, the ghost ends up turning on you. You get this gruesome skull face with all the hair still flowing, and then she ends up ripping you apart, killing you instantly. This is just one of the many game over screens in the game. After she kills you, you get this nice red skull with your quest is over written at the bottom, and then you get to your continue or end screen. I'll now jump right back into the main game where we just were. Once you're back in the main game, you want to make sure that you open up the No Ghost itself and then use it on the ghost. Of course, she ends up melting away, and now we are free to explore the rest of the mansion. Well, at least without that particular ghost trying to get rid of us. Once the ghost has disappeared, we are now free to actually open up the doors in this room. So we're going to open up the two on the left side. Once you've opened up both doors, then head through the upper left door. Inside here, you'll end up making it into a pretty cool looking giant dining room. The first thing you want to make sure that we're going to end up doing here is opening up the door and then taking the bouquet. May seem kind of a weird item to just kind of be laying around, but that's sometimes what happens in these point and click games. Either way, once you have the bouquet in your hands, go through the upper left door. Inside here, you'll find the kitchen. Be sure to grab the knife from the upper left area of items, and then it'll be hard to see, but if you look at your mini-map, there's actually two doors here. Open up the door on the right side and then go through it to find another pantry type area. Inside here, grab the matches, which are the small little box item on the far right of the second shelf. Once you have them, head back out of the previous couple of rooms. Once back to this hallway, go through the upper right door to get back to the first room area that we were in. Inside here, you want to use the matches, now on the fireplace located on the right side. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult just to even see that that was a fireplace located there, but you can actually see the log when you look at it. Of course, then the fireplace will light up. Once it's done so, Then you want to use the knife on the couch. Apparently our main character isn't very fond of living room furniture and goes psycho on it, but the good news is you end up finding a key for doing so. Once you have the fireplace lit up and have the key number 1 in your possession, now go back through the upper left door to go back to this hallway. Inside here, go upstairs. Once you're now on this floor, go through the lower left door this time. This is the master bedroom. Inside here, you're going to want to use the key on the far closet. It's kind of hard to tell that you could even use the key on that, but when you click on it, you end up unlocking it. You can then see the inventory for the closet on the right side here. While there are a decent amount of items here, scroll 2, 3, and bottle number 2, the only item that we really need is the box item. Once you have the box in your possession, go back to the previous room. Once you're back in this hallway, go back down, then go back to the other room where we have the fireplace, and now you're going to actually want to throw the box that we just got in our possession, the nice box. You just want to chuck it into the fire and get rid of it. Once you throw the box into the fire, you end up getting the star item, which is one of the most important items in the game. Of course, you don't want to just stare at the pretty star, you want to actually pick it up, and once it's in your possession, go through the upper left door to go back to this hallway. Once here, move through the lower left door. This time you'll be in the game room. This is actually a very important room as well. You'll actually see a phonograph on the right side, and if you actually play the phonograph, you'll get to hear kind of a broken record version of the theme to Shadowgate for the NES. And it's kind of a cool little Easter egg. Inside here, you want to use the key and open up the cabinet in the back of the room. Once you've opened up the cabinet, you want to grab the Gypsy doll. You then want to use the spell Doll Doll that we got earlier on from the scroll in order to actually allow the doll to talk to you, one of the creepier moments of the game. However, it's actually very important because the doll ends up giving you another spell for talking to it, the Open Sesame. Then open up and go through the door at the back of the room to find a trophy room filled with animals that have been slaughtered and now turned into household decorations. Inside here, you don't actually want to leave the room quite yet, like I did. Unfortunately, I forgot to grab an item, so we'll go back into the previous room and grab the cage item that was sitting on the lower left side of the screen next to the tiger rug. Once back outside, we see one of the random events of the game. There's two really random events that will happen from time to time. One is a bird will fly overhead, and the other is a red demon will appear and dance across the screen. The red demon will always say that it has a key on it, which ends up being essential for you later on, as your goal is actually to get that key off the red demon. But it's one of those really weird things, and you'll see it probably at least once before actually being able to take care of the demon and get the key. Inside the center of the three paths along the main open path that we got outside is the greenhouse. And inside we want to pick up the watering can and use that watering can on the potted plant in the lower left corner. You actually have to use it on the potted plant multiple different times, and every time you do, the plant grows a little bit bigger. However, you can only use the watering can twice before it runs out of water. So go out to the previous screen and use the faucet in the lower right corner. Unfortunately, if you try like me to just use the watering can on the faucet without it being on, it won't do you any good. So, use the empty watering can on the faucet and fill it back up. Once you've done so, go back into the greenhouse and water the plant one last time. Doing so will cause a fruit to spawn on it. Now with the fully grown plant, and as you can see the fruit dangling off of it, be sure to take the fruit, which can be a little bit hard to grab with the little cursor sometimes. Just keep clicking on it and eventually you should be able to get a hold of the fruit itself. Once you have it, move out back to the beginning of the greenhouse and then back to the three choices. Now you want to go over to the far right side, which is the location of the chapel. Right outside the chapel, you'll be met with two menacing guard dogs. Now these dogs really aren't going to play nice with you until, well, we use one of our spells, and that is the Thunder spell. Use Thundidi on the dogs, and that'll cause a big thing of thunder and lightning to crash over the head, causing the dogs to, well, run away. Once the dogs are gone, you can now go through the church door itself. There's a few items that we need to interact with inside of the chapel. First off, though, we're going to be using the Open Sesame spell, which causes not only a door to open up, but also the marble bust on the far right side to actually start talking to us. Once your conversation with the marble statue has ended, use the matches on the candle. This will of course light the candles, and then you want to actually take the candles. This will allow us to see in the dark later on when we go through the giant maze of the game. Be sure to also grab the goblet that's sitting next to the candles on the area to the back. Once you do so, the altar will actually move out of the way. You want to then go through the secret passage that the altar moved away from. Inside here, you'll end up finding yourself in a large yard with the giant stone maze up ahead of you. One of the other weird scenes plays out here as you'll see a giant ghost spawn and fly on screen for a second and then just fly off like nothing happened. There's really no rhyme or reason for it other than kind of just amp up the creepy factor, but still a pretty cool scene nonetheless. Now, inside the stone maze, of course, being a first-person maze perspective, this is one of the most difficult areas to get through. So, follow the movements that I end up taking, mainly heading north a little bit, then west, and then start, well, heading north a couple of times, and west a few more times. Just follow the actual movements instead of me just reading each one of them off, and eventually you'll end up making it to the first of many creatures that are located inside of this maze. The first of the creatures we run into is a zombie. Now, the undead zombie here can actually be taken care of quite easily by using one of the items we got earlier on in the game, the pendant. Use the pendant on the zombie itself and you'll easily get rid of him. Once he's taken care of, we'll move on to the next area of the maze. A little bit farther ahead, we'll come to a tombstone located on the left wall. Here we're going to actually use the bouquet of flowers we picked up much earlier on in the dining room and use that on the tombstone. Laying them at the base of the tombstone will actually cause it to move away, revealing a secret entrance. Once you go through here, you'll end up coming to this area, and you'll have to use the key on the keyhole, which causes 3 creatures to pop out of the cages. You'll have a bird, a cat, and a snake. Now we only need one of them, and only one of them is the correct one to take, and that is the hawk. So use the animal cage that we got from the trophy room earlier on the hawk. Once you do so, kind of weirdly, the snake immediately eats the cat whole. It ends up actually looking kind of like a turtle in my opinion once it swallows the cat, and another one who's just, well, weird things in this game. But even more weird is the giant floating ball monster that you run into right after this. To take care of this giant creature, you actually want to open up the cage that we just put the hawk in. Releasing the hawk will actually distract the monster, and the monster will go after the hawk trying to eat it, allowing you to grab the item that's located behind him. Once you have the jewel in your possession, use the spell Telemaze to instantly warp you outside of the giant labyrinth. Thankfully, you have that spell because getting back through there without it would be a big pain. Of course, you then want to backtrack yourself through the chapel, back outside the church entrance, and then back to the 3 choices. Seemingly, another random bird flies overhead, though it's not the hawk that's being chased by the creature. Now we want to go over to the left side for the first time. Over here you want to use the jewel that we got behind that weird creature inside of the maze and put it in the weird white spot just below the top sign. Doing so will cause a little bit of magic to happen basically and allow us to go inside the door. Once inside, you run into a weird blue ghost creature. Now this guy actually is just hungry, so that's pretty easy to take care of, right? Use the fruit that we got from the tree that we ended up making grow, and he'll easily be satisfied and, well, float away. With him gone, open up the door in the back of the room, and then of course go through it. You'll now be in the laboratory. Inside here, you want to open up the safe in the upper left corner and put in the correct combination into the safe in order to actually open it up. Thankfully, the code for the safe ends up being the same every time you play it, so if you've learned the code one time, it's the same every time. So enter it and open it up to find a cookie jar, of all things. Take the cookie jar into your possession, and then you want to use the axe that we got early on in the game from the spiral staircase room, and use that on the jar. Doing so will of course shatter the jar and give us a cookie. With the cookie now in your possession, you need to do some backtracking. Back your way all the way to the 3 choices, and then back into the trophy room, and into the room before that, to the game room that we saw the phonograph, as well as we ended up opening up the cabinet. Inside here, we actually run into the red demon for the first time. Like I mentioned before, he just dances across the screen. You question just even seeing him, but it also mentions that he has a key, which is the really point of him being around. Well, to get that key off of him is actually quite simple. All demons like cookies, right? So use the cookie that we got on the plate. The demon will show up once again dancing, grab the cookie and run off with it, leaving the key behind. Now grab that key and actually go all the way back to the laboratory where we just were. Use the key on the manhole in the bottom left corner of the laboratory room and then drop down. You'll now be in a weird cave area. And inside here you'll end up meeting an old stranger. He tells you all about how he sealed the evil Draken, and now he has to actually get rid of the body once and for all, or else he won't be freed. So use the star item that we got earlier on from that box that we threw into the fire, and use it on the wall in the back of the room. This will end up causing a huge flame burst to appear and melt the ice wall, revealing not only another area of the cave, but also the unconscious body of Draken. The old man ends up appearing again and warns you to get rid of the body quickly before it awakens. Now this is probably one of the funniest parts to me in the game, because all you end up doing is taking the body and just chucking it down a hole. That's it. The evil force that's kind of controlling, and I think one of the main reasons why the house is haunted and everything's been going on, you just pick up and throw down a hole. No questions asked. However, the game's not quite over yet. We still have to save our sister. So, go past the room, past the hole, and then use the key number 2 that we got in order to open up the door at the top of the staircase, and then go up to, of course, the door above. You end up hearing your sister scream, and it sounds like the screams are coming from above you, so work your way back through the other rooms and dining room until you make it back to this hallway. Of course, now you want to travel upstairs. Once up here, you'll hear some more screaming, and you want to go back to the bedroom that we saw that bathroom in earlier that I ended up entering accidentally, and I mentioned it was an important room later on. Now is the time that we actually want to go there. Inside this room, the door immediately slams behind us, so we're unable to escape. We also hear your sister screaming a lot louder, so we know she's really close now. Open up the faucet to the bathtub on the left side, and then try to open up the light fixture at the top of the room. You won't be able to open it, but water will start filling up in the tub and start overflowing. So keep trying to open up the light fixture and the room will keep filling up with water. Eventually, when it reaches all the way up, you'll be able to open it up and go through it in order to find your sister. Now you end up finding her, but she unfortunately seems to have passed out, so the best way to take care of that is actually using the hit command to hit your sister. Once you've done so, the evil demon in her body will end up bursting through, and of course, he's done and tired with her body and now wants a fresh body. Your sister thankfully ends up escaping out the window just behind the demon, and now it's just up to you to take care of the demon itself. So, use the goblet we got from the chapel earlier on the demon, and then go through the window in order to complete the game. If you decide for some reason to try to go back into the water-filled room below, it ends up being another one of those instant deaths. So, if you feel like drowning, be my guest, but if you want to complete the game and enjoy the ending, go through the window. So then you have the nice little ending to the storyline. You and your sister are saved, and the whole world seems much brighter now that the evil has been taken care of. We then have a picture of your sister with a heart that ends up popping out and the peace sign, and then the end written underneath of it. There is no credit screen for the game. This is actually just the ending to it, and of course at this point you have to reset the game to start it all over again if you want to. Uninvited is easily one of my favorite point-and-click adventure games probably ever, and it's right up there with Maniac Mansion for, well, honestly, the best point-and-click game available for the NES. And it's hard not to also recommend the other Icom simulations and Kemco point-and-click games, Deja Vu and Shadowgate. While there actually was a sequel to Deja Vu, and there was actually sequels to Shadowgate as well, unfortunately, there was never a sequel to Uninvited. Now, of course, they kind of wrapped up the storyline quite nicely in Uninvited, but it would have been kind of cool to see maybe a continuation with a similar person eventually entering the manor. But either way, that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.